Loving you, mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
Are you living your passion? Welcome to Make It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. I'm Noreen Daly, and to talk about the whole idea of finding your true passion is a friend. He's an educator. He's a journalist. Who is he? So, Dominic, how are you?
I'm good. I'm full, so I'm feeling good. Feeling good.
Inside joke. Inside
Feeling
joke.
good.
Inside joke.
Yeah.
So, Dominic, people talk about this loosely, that you must make sure that you're living your passion and all of that. No, you and I spoke about this topic, and before we segue into the whole idea of true passion, when you think of living your passion, and you grew up hearing that, I'm sure, what is it that you thought that would mean?
I didn't know at the time that I had a say in what that looked like. I think it was more of, what others expected of me. So it was until I got older and I realized that I had agency over what that passion looked like. That I really truly saw it for myself,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the whole idea of passion, and for you, that means what? Living your passion, that you'd be doing what?
Passion for me, living my passion meant that I would be a journalist. Growing up, I always knew that I wanted to be a reporter. For instance, I was sharing with my sister yesterday, when I was about 7 or 8, I had a newspaper that I would print on Microsoft Publisher called the McKenzie Times. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was a kid, and I knew from that moment that reporting was what I wanted to do. Wasn't quite sure how to make it happen, but I truly believe, if I'm allowed to say, the cards aligned in such a way that I would end up where I am today. So I do think the journey was rocky, some of that. But do I believe that I've realized or I'm living out my passion? I do.
Nice.
I do.
Nice. So now let's get to the whole idea then of finding your true passion, because you were a journalist.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to say doing big stuff. Yes, you were in New York working with Spectrum, I believe it was. But somehow you made a shift.
Yes.
Why?
So it's strange because, like I said, right, I've always wanted to be a reporter since I was a kid. When I left Jamaica to move to the US, I moved to study journalism. My sights were set on CNN. That was what I believed I was going to do. And I do believe I was on track to do that.
Nice.
I left graduate school, went to Spectrum News, worked for a while, reported, and then the whole George Floyd thing happened. And, watching people on camera, like one day I was off from work, it was a Friday afternoon, segue. If anybody tells you can't work as an Adventist in media, it's a lie. So Friday afternoon I was off, and I was watching some coverage on the protests. And there was a reporter from CNN, Omar Jimenez. He was just doing his job, and he was arrested live on camera for just doing his job. And he and his camera person were arrested. And I was glad to have witnessed that moment, but it was an eye opener for me, where I realized, I don't want that. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't, imagining my dad watching me from Jamaica, looking at me being arrested on camera in the United States as a black man with an accent. I realized that I'm not sure, I want to do that. I want to expose myself to that. During the same time, though, I was teaching. I was teaching at NCU. She's my boss. And I really fell in love with my students. I fell in love with what I was doing. But it wasn't until I saw light bulbs going off in my students' eyes and above their heads, when they started to pick up on what they were being taught, it started to make sense to them, that I found true fulfillment. I always knew I would teach at some point, maybe 10 years down the road. But I didn't think at this age, at this time, that I would have fallen in love with lecturing the way that I did. And I felt like that was orchestrated by God at the time, for me to realize that I needed to make that switch sooner. And I don't regret it.
Good.
Some people would say, You left Jamaica to become a reporter on TV. People always said that not gonna happen. It happened. So how in the world would you walk away from that because you were on track to doing these things? You know, working on CNN, like I said, that was a goal of mine. But I saw better for myself, and I say that respectfully to all the reporters out there and my students who I'm training to do that. I just didn't know how much longer I would last, making it last, right? I didn't know how much longer I would last in that space, while also taking care of my mental health and emotional health and that kind of thing. So yeah, I made the switch, and you know, it was nerve-wracking. I was like, what am I doing? You know, went to school for all this stuff, but I haven't regretted it. Here with Noreen Daly talking about finding your true passion. Stick around, we'll be right back after a quick break.
I loving you, mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors: Beat It, Berry Bomb, Get Fresh, Ton Up, and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics, or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-876-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-876-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Photography is an art, but more so, photography must come from the heart. Precious moments, priceless times. Take a pic and know it will turn out fine.
BMC Photography JA, beautiful moments captured. Let's go.
I recently have been coached by the great Miss Noreen Daly. I own a video company. I'm also an online influencer. So I do a lot of speaking virtually and in person. She was able to point out some of my weaknesses that I didn't yet notice. And I 100% recommend Miss Noreen Daly as your coach.
Noreen Daly, redefining the way you communicate.
I loving you, mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
Welcome back. We're talking about finding your true passion with Noreen Daly on the Making It Last podcast.
Why did you decide at that time? Because you said, let's backtrack a bit. You said at some point you figured that you would teach.
Sure.
And this could be happening, and then you still say, you know something, I can still do a bit of both. Why is it you said, I'm going to just step away from that and literally go into full-time teaching? Why now?
It made sense. Like I said, I have not felt that kind of fulfillment in my life until I saw students enjoying the art of news writing and news producing and presenting, and knowing that I had a say, or I helped them. I held their hand to get to that point. I just felt so good. I was teaching, before teaching at NCU, I was teaching at my grad school in New York City, right beside the New York Times. So it's in the middle of, the media capital of the world, and we're meeting all these reporters coming in and out of the school, and just seeing the excitement, the eyes lighting up, I knew that I was in the right place. But it wasn't until I met my NCU students that I realized that this is something I need to do. And if I sit down here and wait, I'm going to miss this opportunity, this window, to really realize something that I didn't think I needed at the time. But when I walked into it, I realized, it's a good thing I listened to that still small voice. because not only that, I'm sure my students needed me, I needed them too, and I haven't regretted it at all.
It's interesting what you just said. You said you needed them
Yeah.
and they needed you, but do you think it is because of where you were in your life at that
100%.
time to actually be open to that?
100%. You know, because after leaving home for so long and trying to figure out what the next 10 years would look like. Yeah, I'm not old, right? I'm a young guy approaching I won't age myself, so I won't tell you how old I am. But I was approaching a particular age where people usually say, you know, this is the time when you kind of refocus energies and kind of decide where your life is headed. So I was there, and I'm like, you know what? I felt blessed in that moment, because so many people at that time around that age were like, what do I do in my life? You know, what do I do? I really felt like God orchestrated it in that way. And I talk about this all the time because I feel like people are just so afraid to do something that is opposite of what they told the whole world they would do. You know, how do you go back to the world and tell them that something that you told them for 10 years that you're going to do, that you don't want to do it anymore? It's hard, you know, because it's almost as if you're going against the belief that they invested in you, because you probably took a while to convince them that this is something that was good. Because we as human beings, for whatever reason, we feel like we have to convince people to buy into our own ideas.
Yes.
Which is rubbish, respectfully. Believe in your own self and what the Lord has placed in your heart, and they'll pick up on it eventually. And if they don't, who cares? You know that what was instilled in you was for you and nobody else. Because I could have done other things. I could have stayed home. I didn't have to go overseas. For those who know me, know my mom passed when I was a kid, and I do believe, this is going to sound really strange, but those who would have experienced loss at an early age might be able to relate to this. But I truly believe that my mom had to die when she did.
Okay.
Because for me, there are certain things I don't think I would have accomplished had she been around. And I say that with all the love in my heart for her. And but I just believe that I needed to have been challenged in that way when I was 10 years old, so that now I could make bold steps like these, because I had 20 years to try and fail. When I was a student at NCU, I flunked my way out, like 1.9 GPA. Like,
wow.
What?
Wow.
I'm not ashamed of it either, because it's my story,
It's part of who you are.
Yeah. So all of that coming into one has really fueled my interest and belief in my own self and my capacity to go after what I consider to be my passion. And the passion might change. 5 years from now, something might go off in my head and I say, you know what, I want to go back to TV. Who knows? But that's the beauty of life. It's just allowing the unknown, or embracing the unknown and the possibilities.
Embracing the unknown, but you do know that just the whole idea of that uncertainty is easier said than done.
Sure.
Do you then think that it is also, because I'm aware sometimes of some of the people, I know some of the people who are within your circle, you think in a large degree because of the support that you have, that you were able to say, I've been doing this a while, I'm going to make that shift. How do you think those relationships have actually helped you in terms of you making that switch?
They 100% helped me.
Okay.
And I say that understanding that not everyone is going to have that kind of support. The support I have had and have now. So I'll say it in two ways. So the support I had was pivotal. I mean, they, like Ruth and Cam and Tariq and those folks, you and other people in my life have really pushed me to realize certain dreams. But there are also times when the Ruthans, the Yus, the Cams, the Tariqs didn't understand. And nothing that they could have done in their lives would have allowed them to understand where I was at certain points.
Okay.
So I had to write it on my own.
Okay.
But it's because it's the trust that they put in me. They trusted that I was making the right decision for myself. So even if they didn't understand it, they didn't have to. They just knew that this dude is doing what he wants, and because we love him, as family, we're going to support him. So, I say those two things that way because I realize that not everybody has that support.
Yes.
So you have to really find something inside of you that is not going to make sense to anybody. The scarier it is, the more possible it is. If that makes sense.
Love that.
You know?
Love that.
So I talk a lot, right? And I said a lot. So stick around. We're going to come back for part 2. It's a great conversation here on the Making It Last podcast on finding your true passion.
I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives,